Hello everyone, Thomas Fleming here again. It's been raining all night, so we're getting a little bit of a late start, waiting for things to dry out. That's all right. The tent's dry, I'm fine. It's just a little cool. Every time one of these fronts comes through, it's dragging the cool air in. And then when it leaves a nice clear sky at night. The temperature just drops. So we're going to gradually warm up over the next few days, so I'll be okay. I've only got a few more days here anyway. I've got, I think the 26th is a moving day, so that's Thursday. It's supposed to be like 30 degrees and rain the night before. A repeat of this. But I'll be mostly packed by that time. Okay. One of the things that we've got coming up fairly soon is we've got to get the two witnesses here. Now, the two witnesses are into the tribulation time frame. They will confront the Antichrist. They will confront the beast from the pit. And then they will be killed. So that's got to happen. And they've got to do their bit for the first half of the 70th week. And then they will get the temple built after they're gone, and it may be built before that, but won't be actually ready until the midway point, at which point the Antichrist will defile it. Okay, so who are our two witnesses? I'm not going to read about them because they don't have a whole lot to read, but go to Revelation 11. John's told to measure the temple, but don't measure the outer court, because the Gentiles have been running amok there and they're not going to be able to deal with that. So they're just going to build the inner part of the temple, the part where God would be if he were there. And then the two witnesses are going to be roaming around Jerusalem and the Temple Mount area and telling people to behave, to allow the God of the universe to have reign and rule. Of course, the Antichrist won't like that, and there will be a problem. So who are the two witnesses? Well, there's been much speculation, and unfortunately that's all we can do is speculate. We know Elijah's already been back, so who are we talking about? Is he coming back again? It's possible. Moses would be the other one. How do we determine that? Not by any names mentioned, but by what they do. One of the first things that they do is they get up and they tell everybody about what is going on with my computer. Here we go. They tell them that they're not going to have any rain for a little while, and that anybody who attacks them will be destroyed. And the only one with enough nerve to do that will be the Antichrist. And at this point in time, he's a leader, and he will be killed, and he will be resurrected and inhabited by the Apollyon from the pit. So we have to be gone. I don't think we're going to see these guys. I'm not even sure if we're going to know who they are. You know, they're going to be people on earth again who have been born and grown up for this purpose. The Antichrist is a person from this earth who's going to grow up for this purpose. It's not a two-way street to go up and down yet. It's a one-way street. Okay, so the first one I'm not going to talk about a whole lot, but we're going to talk about one of them being potentially Moses. Because of the plagues, there's going to be some plagues. We're going to see someone again who's got the power to do miraculous things on earth. It's important for the time to get people's attention. We don't see miraculous things miraculous things happening every day right now. They're hidden. Miracles are going on all the time, but it's not drawing attention to anybody because it's not time yet. So Moses will probably be the one of them. He was one who stood up against authority. Once he got his act together and talked to God through the burning bush, he went back to Pharaoh and demanded all the things to release the people of Israel. There's another one that, and we don't know if he died or if he was raptured up to God, because he was just left on the mountain and nobody went back to check on him. We don't know where his bones lie, if they're any place, we don't know. So he's one assumption because of the plagues. The drought brings into mind Elijah. And I'm not going to talk about this new guy, this other guy, Enoch, because he didn't die. So those are the three contenders. The most likely are Moses and Elijah. And today I want to focus on Elijah. Moses, like I said, could do the miracles. The people of the time may have called it magic, but it was God working through him. And God was always better. In fact, the people of the time could do their own magic. And now I'm using the word magic because I'm talking about the people, not God. Moses threw his staff down, it turned into a snake. Pharaoh had his two magicians throw their staves down, and they turned into snakes. But then God instructed Moses' snake to eat the other two snakes, which he did, to make sure they knew who was in authority. Okay, so now Elijah. What do we know about Elijah? Well, he was a prophet with powers, and he was commanded to go up against the ruler of that time. We're going to find him in the first book of Kings. Why kings? Because the people insisted that they have a leader. All the other countries had leaders, so they wanted a leader. They wanted a king. They told God, we don't want Moses anymore, we want a king. So they got a king. They got a number of kings. But when you tell God that you have to have something and it's not in your best wishes and he doesn't want to give it to you, but he does it anyway, there's going to be strings attached. And one of them is you're going to get a bad king, which they got, Ahab. Now, he may have been good at one point in time, but he married Jezebel. Yes, the infamous Jezebel, that's who he married. And she was into Baal, or Baal. And he followed her into this worship. And God didn't like it. He doesn't like idol worship. And that's what they're all about. And Baal is another one of these mother-son relationships, pointing to what Mary and Jesus become at some point. It's all Satan's attempt to clone. In Babylon, same thing. It's all that. So anyhow, let's go ahead and jump over to 1 Kings chapter 17. And we're going to read about Elijah. And Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, the current king of Israel, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. Whenever you got a prophet like that, you got to be careful. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, get thee hence and turn eastward, and hide thyself by the brook of Chinneth, that is before Jordan. So after he told Ahab that, he told Elijah to just get out of here. He's going to fume, and when he tells Jezebel, they're going to try to kill you. So he takes him and hides him. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, at least while there's water in it. And I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there. That's pretty cool. He commands the ravens. I wonder if they'd bring me some lunch. They're all around here. You can usually hear them. Sometimes the ravens are working for the other side, so I'm not sure. Anyhow. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and dwelt by the brook of Cherith. That is before Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh, or meat, in the morning, and the bread and the flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. And it came to pass, after a while, the brook dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. He knew what he was doing when he prophesied. And the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise and get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. See, God doesn't send you off on these things without a plan. That's why I tell you, you've got to have a plan. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow woman was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I might drink. And as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, Bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread of thy hand. And she said, As the Lord thy God giveth, I have not cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I'm gathering 2 sticks that I may go in and dress it for me, that my son and I can eat and then die. There's a task you don't want to have to do. Her and her son are preparing for their last meal. God sent Elijah. And he said to her, Fear not, go and do as thou hast said, but make me therefore a little cake first, and bring it unto me, and after that make thee some for thyself and thy son. Okay, so she's got enough for 1 meal, and he says make enough for 3. Right there ought to be enough to entice her, questioning what's going on. Anyhow, for thus saith the Lord, the barrel of meal shall not waste, nor shall the cruse of oil fail until the day that the Lord sendeth rain upon the earth. Okay, so we don't know how long this is, but it's going to take a little while. And she went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and she said, He and her house did eat many days. So the miracles of God are unending, but they're not always visible. In this case, they're being visible because he needs to have people that trust him instantly without taking time to learn who he is. Okay, and so the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil, according to the word which was spoken by Elijah. Now, more miracles from Elijah. This is Elijah doing these miracles. These are the same kind of miracles that Jesus does eventually, similar to this. And it came to pass that after these things, that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. And his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him, near death, if not already dead. And she said unto Elijah, What have I done to thee, that thou, a man of God, art come to me and call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? Now, we don't know what her sin is, it doesn't matter. But she's thinking that's the reason for her son dying. And he said unto her, Give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into the loft where he was living, and laid him upon his own bed. So he was living up in the loft, up in the ceiling. And he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, that thou hast brought evil upon the widow of whom I have sojourned, by slaying her son. Workers driving their trucks through busy bees all the time. And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Lord, saying, O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah. He hears all of us, by the way. And the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber to the house and delivered him to his mother. And Elijah said, See, thy son liveth. And the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in thy mouth. Okay, now we're going to deal with the big one. We all pretty much are aware of Elijah's work, but this is important that we know how trusting he was, but yet how human he was. He can do the great things that he's doing, but there's times where he runs and hides. But God fed him while he ran and hid. And it came to pass in chapter 18, verse 1, that after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah, so many days. These things don't just happen one right after the other. It takes a while. So when we ask for something and we don't get our McDonald's meal while we're waiting at the drive-thru, we get frustrated with God and we sometimes get mad at him. It's on his schedule, not ours. And the word came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go and show thyself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself to Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. That's where they're at. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of the house, and Obadiah feared the Lord. Ahab didn't, but his servant, his governor, did. For it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, and Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them bread and water. So he hid the prophets. So Elijah was the only one left, only one that could stand up and talk to Ahab. And Ahab said to Obadiah, Go into the land, into the fountains of water, and into all the brooks. Peradventure we may find some grass to save the horses and the mules, that we may not lose all the beasts. So they divided the land between them, and they passed through it. Ahab went one way, and Obadiah went the other way. So they're searching for enough food and that to feed the animals. And as Obadiah went on the way, behold, Elijah met him. And he knew him, and he fell on his face. Obadiah did. And said, Art thou my Lord Elijah? And he answered them, I am. Go and tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. Now this is kind of funny. And he said, What have I sinned that thou hast delivered thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? You want me to go tell Ahab that you're here? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not stupid. You'd get mad and you'd kill me. As the Lord thy God liveth, there is no nation or kingdom whether my Lord has not sent to seek thee. And when he said, He is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom of and the nation that they found thee not. And now you're saying, Go and tell my Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall come and take thee away. So he says, as soon as I go tell him about it, you're just going to disappear again. He cannot find you, and then he shall kill me. 18:13. Was it not told my Lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord, how I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave? 400 before. That might be a plural. Sometimes I get the words wrong. It's still the same message. 100 or 400, doesn't matter. Anyhow, and fed them with bread and water. And now thy servant go tell the Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he shall say to me, and Elijah said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So Elijah went and met Ahab and told him that Ahab comes and sees Elijah, and Ahab says, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? So aren't you the problem that we have now? The problem is Ahab, but he won't admit to it. And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Balaam. or Baal. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel under the mount of Carmel. That's a lot of people. And the prophets of Baal, 450, and the prophets of the groves of the 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. Bring all the people and bring the bad guys. We're going to do a show. In 1820, so Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together on Mount Carmel. That's a lot of people, and that's a big mountain. Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long hast ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. So this is a test between the gods. These were Israelis, these were Jews. They believed in the Lord, but they also followed Baal. And God doesn't like Baal at all. And Baal is back today. So you know God doesn't like him. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets, so he's the only one left. The other ones are hiding. He doesn't want to admit that they're hiding because he'd get Obadiah in trouble. I'm the only one left. But Baal has 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bowls, and let them choose one for themselves, and cut it into pieces, and lay it on wood, but don't put any fire on it. And I will dress the other bowl, and lay it on wood, but not put any fire on it. And call you the name of your gods, and it's little g, plural, because Baal has got a bunch of them. And I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God that answers by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, It is well spoken. The Baal people didn't mind the challenge. They felt very confident that their God would do this. Because Satan has done things in the past to make it look like Baal had power. That's what he's doing now. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, Choose one of the bowls, dress it, call on the name of your gods, but don't put any fire on it. And they took the bowl which was given, and they dressed it, and called the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. Let there be no voice nor any, but there was no voice and no answer. And they leaped around the altar, and they were dancing and, pagan type stuff. You can imagine this. But there was still no voice. It came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them. I wish I could have seen this. And said, Cry aloud, for he is a God, but either he's talking, or he's pursuing something, or he's on a journey, or pre-adventure he's sleeping, and he must be awakened. So they got out and cut themselves. They cried loud and cut themselves with knives and lances until there was blood flowing. The craziness that Satan makes people do, he probably laughs at this when he sees them do it. Okay, so anyhow, and Elijah said unto them, Come near unto me. And the people came over to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which was broken down, because that's Mount Carmel, and there was an altar there, and they had knocked it down, the Baal people. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes, the sons of Jacob, upon whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. Jacob became Israel. And where the stones were built on an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench around the altar. He dug a ditch around it, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. These great big bags or pots that they would put this stuff in. A pretty decent ditch, maybe 6-8 inches deep. And he put the wood on the center and cut the bowl in pieces and laid them on the wood and said, Fill your barrels with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. So go fill your amphores and things that they had and pour the water on it. And he said, Do it a second time. And they did it a second time. He said, Do it a third time. And they did it a third time. He's going to make sure that there's no excuses. And so the water ran out of the altar area and filled the trench with water. That's how much water. Very confident. Elijah very strong and confident at this point. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known that this day thou art God of Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that the people may know thou art the Lord God, and thou hast turned their heart back again. So prove to them who you are, and they will come back to you. And when then the fire from the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. Some big fire. How did he do that? I don't know. It's God, but he did it. And when the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, the Lord, he is the God. The Lord, he is the God. And Elijah said to them, take the prophets of Baal and not let one escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook and slew them, 450 of them. So this is the God that's coming back potentially. Now, he's already been back, because he came back with Jesus, with transfiguration. So he seems to kind of hang out in the right circles. But if he's coming back, he's got power behind him. Now, we're going to find out eventually coming here that, I'm just going to read ahead a little bit, if I can find the spot. Yeah, I don't know if I have time to do this. The bottom line is he's going to go run and hide, because Ahab's going to tell Jezebel, and she's going to get mad and order Ahab to go out and do this. He's kind of under her spell, I guess. In any case, Elijah goes and hides. And he's hiding in a cave. And then finally, God comes to him and says, what are you doing? And he says, he's trying to kill me. So God sends him out to a mountain. And there's a strong wind, and God's voice is not in it. And he sends him someplace else. And finally, he goes back to where it's quiet. And he heard God. So God speaks in a still, small voice. He doesn't speak through all the noise that we have around us all the time. And if you're praying so loud that you can't even hear your breath, then you're praying too loud. You could whisper and God will hear you. And if you're praying loud enough that people will hear you, then you're not doing it right anyway. He didn't like when the Pharisees and Sadducees did that on street corners. Praying loud so people would hear him. So, God speaks in a still small voice. You have to be quiet to listen. Read the scriptures, talk to God, and then sit and be quiet. That's why I like to do my videos in the morning, because I haven't got the energy to get up and make too much noise yet, and nobody else does either. So it's usually pretty quiet. So that's when God can do these videos. I have no idea how to do these. He gives me the message, tells me what to do. And hopefully that it's beneficial. We can learn from the past. We don't have to repeat the past. The world, they're going to repeat it. Babylon is going to repeat their mistakes. They're going to try to have one money, one language, one everything. They may build a tower at some point. We can think that some of the buildings that are out there now might be some of their towers, but they're not going to get away with it any more than they did before. The first time God let them go, he confused their language and let them go. It's not going to happen this time. The harlot's going to be killed because the harlot has taken the blood of Christians. I'm talking prophetically looking back at this point, because none of this has happened yet. But Elijah and Moses probably are going to be the ones that are going to challenge the Antichrist and then be lifted up after being dead for 3 days. An amazing miracle. Now, it doesn't say so. My opinion is that the Antichrist is going to claim that he killed him and then he got rid of him. That it's all his doing. And if the world believes him, we're not going to be here. If the world believes him, then the Antichrist is off and running. The temple will be built, then he will defile it. The arrogance of Satan is seen in his servants as well. I hope we can see this stuff from heaven. I hope there's recordings up there somewhere that we can look at all the previous history. What you're going to find is that all these heroes that we look at, from Abraham to Elijah, are human beings, just like we are. They had frailties. Elijah was frightened a number of times and ran and hid. We have to deal with things that are frightening sometimes. But he stood up to the king of Israel, the bad king of Israel. Moses stood up to Pharaoh, the bad Pharaoh of Egypt. They both paid a price for their behavior. Ahab and Isabel both die. They thought they could do this forever for some reason. I don't know how old the Pharaoh was, but he didn't live much after his son died, so you can't teach some people. They just won't give in. That's why we're not to waste our time with people. Go where God tells you to, where he tells you to go. But if they won't listen, wipe the dust from your feet and move on. There are more people out there that need help. Don't waste your time on those that refuse to listen. We're running out of time. The rapture has got to be soon. Now, we've been saying this for a few years, but we've been watching the chessboard take shape. And God is not working with a timer. Click, your move. Click, your move. He's not working that way. He's working on his own time frame. This isn't a timed game. So we can't sit there and go, it's been 5 seconds since I prayed that. Why am I not wealthy? Or why am I not healed? Or why don't I have a new job? It takes time. And that's the only time that you can apply your faith, is when you're waiting. So wait upon the Lord, and he will renew your faith. And we will mount up on wings of eagles. Wait upon the Lord. Okay, as we continue to wait, tell people about God. I am finding that it's interesting. I am in Georgia, the Bible Belt. I'm finding that it's interesting out here camping that pretty much everybody I talk to claims to be a Christian or was brought up as one. Whether they're living it now or not, I'm not getting into that. I don't know. It's not important. Now, there's a guy in here now who's the only other person camping in this tent. I can see his campsite now. I want to pray for him. I think his name was Mike. But I want to pray for him because he's got some physical problems. His kidneys have shut down, and he's on dialysis 5 days a week. But he's still working because he needs the money. Now, I don't know what kind of life he lives. He strikes me as somebody who's led a hard life. He's an ex-Marine, so they teach him to live life hard. But he's getting a chance to talk. I get to talk to him a little bit. Now, he's not here now. He's either working or getting his dialysis. But when he's back, I'm helping him. He tries to live very simply in this little tent, he and his wife. And she's putting up with a lot, so pray for her too. I don't know their names. I don't get into names sometimes because I don't remember, and then I have to excuse myself because I can't remember their names, so I just don't ask. In any case, pray for them because he needs some help. That's a lot of work. I've seen people going through dialysis. Of course, he's on a list, and I don't know, sometimes people are beyond help in the medical profession's opinion, and therefore they won't, they put them really low on the list for replacement kidneys. Just getting on the list doesn't mean you're ever going to get one, because if they put you so low that you never get brought up, you never get one. But maybe if they can see improvement, They might put him on a list. But he seems nice in talking to him, but like I said, he seems like he also led a hard life. But he's here now. God put him next to me so I can help him in any way I can. And he will listen. That's the key. Find somebody who will listen. All right. Keep an eye out for the two witnesses. I don't know if we're going to see them before we get out of here. They're going to be here for a while, half the time of the, quote, tribulation time frame. So they've got to get here soon for that time to happen. Now, they could be there already, and they could already be working and talking to people, and we just don't know it yet. But they haven't come out and demanded that they relinquish control over the Temple Mount and stop fighting with Israel and all this other stuff. It may be that they show up right after the Magog War, which is supposed to be in the front of the time frame. Whether the Magog War or us, it's, which one's first, the chicken or the egg, I don't know. My guess is we're first, because that would definitely take the United States out of the running, like I talked about in my last video. Because they know that if we do Russia does know, Magog does know that if we get involved, they may still win, but we can do some major damage. And they don't want that. We don't want that on our soil either, so get us out of the way and Satan can do whatever he wants to do. God's still going to put limits on him, but he won't be able to harm Christians initially. There won't be any Christians the day of the rapture on earth. Now, somebody may go, oh my God, did we miss the boat? God, help me, save me, and call out to him at that point. That's what's going to happen during the tribulation time frame. Those that have the name of the book of life will call out to God. But the moment that we leave, there won't be any Christians here. The restrainer will be gone. Till we meet in the clouds, soon it looks like. God bless.